To the point you're making on how hard it's getting for parents to change their mindset to a more eco-friendly kind of concept because of the responsibilities they have to maintain, how do you suppose we go about helping our parents understand the severity of global warming and changes that we can make on a daily basis?
Do you want to ask your question too?
Yes, sir. I come from a really big business background, so I was just wondering, what do you think corporations could do as a whole to help the environment? Because chances are I'm going to go into business at some point. My family's always been from business, so what do you think businesses can do to help the whole global impact?
So David's asked me if I want to try to answer yours, and then maybe he can back me up. Maybe. So I think sharing stats with your family, like, I mean, what I try to do in stats and stories are super like helpful for kind of empowering your family members to take the seriousness of it, and also like the stories of even back home, like researching into like what's happening, say from your like where your parents come from, because say, and this is my point, basically. Kofi Annan, the former UN Secretary General, has a global humanitarian forum, or he did, and it basically they basically came up with a stat which I find staggering, that every year 300,000 people at least die of climate change, because of causes of climate change, and then millions more are made climate refugees. And I think it depends on what's happening in the world, but that's an average, because I think that it could probably be a lot higher than that in certain things where we see that happening. And so, and then my friend Sean, it's like his part of his family is from the Philippines, and he talks to me about like the floods that happen, because these massive floods, because in the Philippines there's I think about 8,000 different islands, and they're in like 60% of their population borders the ocean. So when there's floods, like it completely devastates and impacts, and hundreds of thousands of people died from these floods that happened a couple of years back. And I think just hearing stories about how people are being impacted worldwide, and that they're not isolated incidences, these are like very real serious issues. Like in Alberta, after that oil spill happened by my family's homes, there was 100 forest fires in Alberta in May, burning across the province, and many of them out of control. We've like never seen that happen, and it's in May, not even in the dead of the summer. And so it's a scary thing, but these are like such true stories, and like it's a way that I think you can really compel people to take the seriousness of it. And I think there's so many countries, like any place where anybody's from, like there's probably a story back home that can compel family members to be like, you know what, it's not, things are really great. We live in a quote-unquote first world country in Canada, whatever. There's no problems, even though we're contributing to we have the fastest growing source of greenhouse gas emissions in Canada, and that's why we can't, the Canadian government pulled out of the Kyoto Protocol, because we can't sustain this. And I think that the fact that we're contributing to this is extremely irresponsible. Like we're basically culpable for adding to creating those issues elsewhere worldwide. So.
Do you have any comments?
Yeah, sure. So the question was, how do you get your parents to act on climate change, right? Okay, so one, why should it be your parents? Well, how do we get your peers to act on climate change? Because but there are some things that your parents can do that you can't, e.g. vote. So I'm actually going to kind of go off on a tangent here about this theory. It's called the tragedy of the commons. Basically how it works is it's a story. There's a bunch of farmers. They share a common piece of land that their cows can graze on, and the community shares it. And you put your cows on the grass, they eat the grass, you harvest the cows, you make money. But then what they find happens is one farmer gets the idea, hey, if I put another cow on the grass, I can get twice as much money. And if I don't do that, that farmer over there is still going to do it. And that guy's going to do it, so I might as well, because I'm just one person and I don't matter. But then everyone says that. And then what happens in the end is the grass gets depleted and they're all worse off. So that's the kind of thing of, getting action. And then there's a couple ways to, get around this. One, show some leadership. Say, no, we need to only be able to put this many cows on the grass, because if not, we're only going to be worse off. So that's the kind of same thing with climate change. Talk to your friends, talk to your family. Practice what you preach, because your actions can inspire others. But then the other thing is, the better way to get around this problem is, come up with rules to fix it. Because I know people who, driving to school. It's convenient, it's easy, but they're like, oh, I'm only one car. It doesn't matter if I don't drive. Hey, look, that person's still going to drive and the emissions are going to be the same. So you actually need to come up with ways to, do that. We need to pressure our leaders, or, okay, I don't know if leaders is the right word because they do what we want them to, so maybe followers. We need to pressure them to, get better ideas on how to fix these problems with climate change and inspire collective action from everyone. So talk to your parents about, driving to work and that kind of stuff. But more importantly, talk to them about voting, contacting their politicians and the people who actually have serious decision-making power in our country.
We have room for two more questions.
There was another question, though, that was asked about how do we get the corporate agenda to be more environmentally friendly. I don't think you can. Corporations operate within an economic system. Our problem is, in large part, the economic system. The economy is based on the idea that the most productive thing is people. People are so creative, we have these ideas and we're so productive, that the economy can be, based on human productivity, can grow forever. Hey, wait a minute now. We live within this thin skin around the planet called the biosphere. And it's fixed, it can't grow. How can anything within that fixed biosphere grow forever? It can't. And yet economics is based on this assumption that it not only can, which it can, but it must. That the very definition of progress is constant growth. And so, and that's those are the rules that the corporation runs on. So I just don't think, I think we've got to bring corporations back under control. One, you stop them lobbying governments because they're not people. You stop them funding politicians, and they then can operate under rules that we set. I believe corporations should be told for every X number of dollars, you've got to create a job, because that's part of the responsibility that comes with being a corporate entity. I think that there should be limits on how much profit you make. This year, for some reason, Apple is not making as much profit. They're still making, what, $100 million profit, but because their profit didn't grow, their stock prices have snowed, just dropped through the floor. What the hell is going on? They're one of the most profitable companies going. But we think profit has to keep growing as well. There ought to be a limit on profit. How much is enough? Why do you need more than 5 or 10% profit, for heaven's sake? So we've got to, and every time there's these speculation, the speculation on the stock market is bigger than governments. People, I always wondered, why is it the Canadian dollar is told to us every day down to the 4th decimal point? Canadian dollar today is 9767 to the American dollar. Who cares about those last 3 decimal points? Well, the speculator does, because you buy Canadian dollars, you hold them and sell them, and you can make money without having done anything except buy money, hold it, and then sell it again. Well, this is crazy. Speculation is driving the stock market, and they're not even willing to put a tiny tax on every transaction on the stock market. It's called a Tobin tax, proposed by a Nobel Prize winner. If you had a tiny tax put on every transaction in the stock market, you could accumulate tens of millions of dollars to do other things. But no, speculators aren't willing to do that. So the whole system is really out of kilter with nature. See, in BC, our forests, the jargon is it adds fiber at the rate of 2% per year. That is, it grows 2% per year. Well, you don't have to be a genius to know. If you cut down less than 2% of your trees a year, you could do that forever. That's called sustainable forestry. But why would any logging company limit itself to only cutting 2%? Because you can clear cut the forest, take the money, put it in the bank, and make 5 or 6%. Or clear cut it, take the money, and